rule of law objectives of your administration and in fulfilling Nigeria's international obligations. Thank you very much, Your Excellency, for this audience, and may God bless you and bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
President Muhammadu Buhari commended the National Human Rights Commission for being dutifully firm and unwavering in its commitment to the promotion and protection of human rights in the country. He promised government's continued support and assistance to the Commission in the execution of its mandate, which he described as critical to sustainable peace and stability.
It will show how seriously they have taken some of the extra-governmental organizations that help the government to articulate positions on what receive a lot of publicity. The composition of your committee is very interesting. It covers the whole spectrum of governance, and this is very interesting. So how I wish people will understand and appreciate the Commission and pass the representations through you so that I will have less hectic time in government. I'm very pleased that we have the facilities throughout the country. This is very good. I'm very pleased with the way you approach it and the way you make sure that you are on the ground in every state. The composition, as I mentioned, is all right. Human Rights Commission funding. We'll try and see which minister is supposed to be working with you and find out within our limited resources what we can honestly do for you. Thank you very much.
The National Human Rights Commission Amendment Act 2010 has conferred on the Commission, amongst other powers, to deal with all matters relating to the promotion and protection of human rights as guaranteed by, amongst others, the Nigerian Constitution, the United Nations Charter, and the Universal Declaration on Human Rights. Presently, the United Nations Human Rights Body in particular places Nigeria in Category A of world standing in terms of full compliance with human rights standards globally. That visit to the President of Nigeria by the Governing Council of the National Human Rights Commission gives an opportunity for the council to settle down into its activities, and with the assurance of the President that funding should not be a problem, I'm sure the areas to be addressed, such as the continued NSAS agitation, should, and particularly police brutality, or indeed individual brutality against other individuals, should be addressed. Of recent, we have seen issues of bullying in schools as a major concern, and courtism as major concerns of human rights violations. And now on the scale today, let's conclude with our regular segment from the courts. Olabode Arewa is our guide.
A federal high court in Abuja has refused to grant an injunctive order against the federal government over the plan to deduct $480 million from the allocations of the 36 state governments to pay for their contractual obligations under the Paris Club Fund. Justice Iyan Gekwo declined to grant the injunctive order requested by the 36 state governors. Counsel to the governors, Sunday Ame, had moved a motion on notice praying the court to grant the order because the governors and the states were not parties to the legal action that resulted in a judgment which ordered the federal government to deduct the $480 million from the state government accounts to settle the debt obligations of various contractors who assisted the states to recover the Paris Club refund money. The defendants in the suit, comprising contractors and banks, however, objected to the request by the state governors, that a federal high court had 4 years ago issued an order that the federal government should deduct the money and pay it to them, adding that since the earlier judgment was delivered, the governors have not deemed it fit to file an appeal against the judgment. In another development, a federal high court sitting in Port Harcourt, Rivers State, has convicted and sentenced a fake oil magnate, Dr. Vincent Ayigo, to 175 years imprisonment. The court presided over by Justice Abdullahi Mohammed found Ayigo guilty of duping an American citizen, Joseph Cruz, of the sum of $629,000 in a crude oil supply scam. The Economic and Financial Crimes Commission arraigned the defendant alongside his company on 25 charges bordering on conspiracy, forgery, and obtaining money by false pretense when he deceptively collected the money as part payment for logistics to supply 6 million barrels of burning light crude oil to the American citizen, which he knew to be false. The court found Ayigo guilty and sentenced him to 7 years imprisonment on each of the counts. The sentences are to run concurrently. Court documents showed that Ayigo is leader of a syndicate scamming foreigners by parading as an international operator in the oil and gas sector, thereby forging documents and transacting businesses bearing the name of the NNPC. A federal high court in Abuja has stalled the planned trial of a former chief of army staff, Lieutenant General Kenneth Minima, over the alleged complicity in the diversion of public funds estimated at 13.8 billion naira. The two other persons are Major General Adebayo and Brigadier General R.I. Odi. They were accused by the EFCC of allegedly misappropriating the said money from funds provided by the federal government for the purchase of military hardware, and that the Committee on the Audit of Defense Equipment Procurement in the Nigerian Armed Forces discovered during its investigations that certain monies were missing. The EFCC thereafter wrote the army authorities requesting their release for prosecution. But on learning about the EFCC's request for their release, Minima, Adebayo, and Odi filed a suit before the Federal High Court to challenge their planned trial before a civil court. Their lawyer, Mahmoud Magaji SAN, argued that under the Armed Forces Act, the EFCC lacked the powers to initiate criminal proceedings against them, saying that the most the EFCC could do under the Act was to report these findings to their commanding officer, who could only charge them before a court-martial and not another court.
So much on the scale today. We shall be examining other emerging issues from across the country that border on our justice system and help us to ensure that the rule of law moves on quick and enhances our polity. Thank you for being part of today's program, and we shall be seeing you again in due course.
Welcome to Abuja, the place that unites Nigeria.
It's all in the air and it's all in my heart. The feeling of anticipation. Let the songs and cheering out everywhere in celebration.
Some go there fry chin, some go there fry meat, some go there cook jollof. Me, I go shop potato with decorations everywhere, making it very clear.
It's the season and a reason to turn your frown upside down. It's the season and a reason to spread love and joy all around. Christmas. Merry Christmas.
Happy New Year.
Christmas.
Happy New Year. Happy New Year.
It's the season and a reason. Turn your frown upside down. It's the season and a reason to spread love and joy all around.
Happy New Year.
Christmas.
Happy New Year. Happy New Year.
Compliments of the season, a very Merry Christmas and a most glorious New Year from all of us in NTA.
Wannan labarin ma yana peji na 36.
Ita kuma babban labarin wannan jarida shine ainihin
labarin da ke gaban jarida shine ta bayyana cewa
ọkwa ojii ikenga eziokwu
nwanne m nwoke
Ikechukwu Ndukwe Igbo mam
iji wee mee ka ụbọchị na-aga n'anya ya.
ọjọ́ léwútẹ́lú nù.
Nation fún ti òwúrọ̀ yìí ibẹ̀ náà ti sọ pé àwọn ìgbìmọ̀ aláṣẹ ìpínlẹ̀ Benue pàṣẹ wípé
ní gbogbo àwọn ẹ̀ka ní ẹ̀ka ètò ẹ̀kọ́ ní ẹ̀ka ètò ìlera ní ẹ̀ka ètò ààbò.
Presidency response to reactions on why President Buhari withheld assent to electoral amendment bill.
Federal Ministry of Agriculture adopts new policy to be implemented from 2022 through 2025.
NSCDC personnel intercept notorious bandits in Zamfara State.
Good morning, Nigeria will be beaming its searchlight today on the surge in COVID-19 cases in Nigeria.
Well, let's begin with some current statistics of Nigeria's COVID-19 update. And as at 28th of December 2021, that's yesterday, Nigeria added 599 cases, new cases of the infection. Now, this, of course, brought up the country's total figure to 239,019 since the outbreak of the virus in February 2020.
Truly, clear coronavirus disease, COVID-19, that is, which is an infectious disease, was discovered to have been caused by SARS-CoV-2 virus and has mutated to having variants such as the Delta and now Omicron.
Nadabo, I'm sure by now we are all familiar, of course, with how coronavirus is transmitted. But just as a reminder, it spreads from, well, an infected person's mouth or nose in small liquid particles. And that, of course, when they cough or when you sneeze or speak or sing or hear, or of course, when you're at close proximity or you come in contact with any other person who, of course, has the virus.
And although the particles range from larger respiratory droplets to smaller aerosols, one is liable to be infected by breathing in the virus when one is in close proximity to whoever has COVID-19 or by touching a contaminated surface.
Well, we now know the severity of COVID-19, of course, and the other variants. At the initial stage, most people who, of course, fall sick with COVID-19 or who contract the virus, we're told experience mild to moderate symptoms and, of course, recover without special treatments because, of course, there are some asymptomatic cases, but some go on to become seriously ill and require medical attention.
Yeah, experts claim the symptoms of Omicron, a variant of COVID-19, differ slightly and resembling a harsh cold, runny nose, sneezing, sore throat, and body aches, and that the virus spreads more easily indoors and in crowded settings through the eyes, nose, or the mouth.
So since the coronavirus outbreak or pandemic, we've had variants, we've had different waves. I think today we're experiencing the fourth wave.
Yeah,
fourth wave of coronavirus in Nigeria, and in some countries of the world, they're shutting down because of the severity, because of increasing cases of the pandemic in those countries. So it has become a very serious concern, not just the emergence of new variants, but also, the increasing cases recorded on a daily basis, especially here in Nigeria.
And of course, with the recent announcement of Moderna and mRNA as boosters and antibody against Omicron COVID vaccine, emerging world data shows that boosters can protect against symptomatic and severe diseases.
And for people that have taken the vaccines from Pfizer or Moderna, or of course, what's the other one? AstraZeneca.
Yeah.
Such persons are eligible for a booster. That's, of course, if you have completed your series. And the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency, of course, have guidelines on its website. Months after your second dose, you are eligible, of course, to receive your booster. And, of course, we hear that recipients of Johnson & Johnson's one-shot vaccine are also booster eligible, but only after 2 months. So what is the role of Nigeria in, is it curtailing?
Yeah, really curtailing the situation.
Yes, curtailing the situation, addressing the situation, and there's so many issues. Remember, Nadabu, that not quite long ago, Nigeria destroyed the expired, vaccines publicly. So that's another issue. Other issue is also the effectiveness of the booster dose itself. And why are we having such alarming cases, daily cases now?
And really the surge, as we are going to discuss today. And the questions are, how can Nigeria address the recent surge in COVID-19 and the stigmatization associated with it, which is forcing people to hide their identity clear and then shy away from testing and treatment? This and many more issues will be examined today on Good Morning Nigeria. We thank you so much for joining us. I am Yusuf Dadabo Usman.
And I am Claire Adelabo Abdul Razak. Always a pleasure to have you join us as we discuss another insightful issues on Good Morning Nigeria. It's live on the network service of the NTA, and we're reaching you from the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja. We'll kickstart our program as usual with our morning news, and Dennis Adegunloye. It's here, of course. Dennis, why are you nodding your head? Have you taken your booster shot already?
I'll be working towards it. I like the way you emphasize my Adegunloye this morning. Thanks very much. Good morning, Claire and Nadabo. Good morning, Nigeria. Here is the morning news. The presidency has responded to reactions generated by the decision to withhold assent from the Electoral Act Amendment Bill 2021, which came under scrutiny from media and political circles. The presidency explained that Nigeria's strength. Senior Special Assistant to the President on Media and Publicity in a statement said it is quite correct. That's because it is a decision that will impact all Nigerians. The presidency explained that Nigeria's strength as a nation and its status as one of the wealthiest economies in Africa with one of its highest standards of living owes above all to its proud democratic processes, which are enshrined in the Electoral Act of 2010. The Federal Ministry of Agriculture has adopted a new policy on agricultural technology and innovation for the country's agricultural development. The policy is to be implemented between 2022 and 2025.
Also gives adequate attention to fisheries, value chain, particularly the artisanal fisheries, with the aim of reducing the import to meet domestic consumption.
The Kano State government will demarcate about 2,000 kilometers of stock route as part of measures to address conflicts between farmers and pastoralists. Already, a committee has been constituted to carry out the task and is in consultation with stakeholders, including traditional rulers, to ensure timely and successful execution.
And every local government in the state will have their own committees, and these committees, they will serve as an avenue where they will be resolving issues and other crises of the stock routes.
Zamfara State Command of the Nigeria Security and Civil Defense Corps has arrested some suspected notorious bandits who have been in the watch list of security agencies. The suspects were intercepted at some motor parks in Gusau, the state capital.
Confessed that he has participated in several banditry activities. He had attacked several villages. According to him, he said what he benefits mostly from it is 10,000 and above. Each operation he goes, they will give him 10,000 or something similar to that.
The Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development has handed over some development projects to 4 local governments in Kano State. The projects are part of efforts by the federal government to discourage rural and urban migration, which are key to sustaining agricultural production.
Every reason to cultivate more land, we appreciate.
So when you give them good roads, definitely the goods that they produce will get to the market at the cheaper rates and at an easier, way for them.
And the Nigeria Center for Disease Control, NCDC, has confirmed 599 new cases of COVID-19 in 40 states and the FCT. The breakdown shows that Delta State recorded the highest number of new infections with 194, followed by Edo recording 94 new infections. The FCT records 80, Kaduna 48, Lagos 35, Ondo 23, Kano 21, Rivers and Kwara 20, Ogun 18, Plateau 12, Abia and Cross River 8 each, while Ekiti records 6. Bauchi is final for the day with 3 new cases. Nigeria now has 239,019 confirmed cases of COVID-19, out of which 213,180 are being treated and discharged. The death toll is now 3,027. And of course, there'll be more discussions on COVID-19 after this break with Nadabo and Claire. Good morning.
The Nigerian aviation sector is rapidly growing with the construction of new international airport terminals in several regions of the country. The new Murtala Mohammed International Airport has an estimated passenger increase of 30 million annually and 15 million for Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport, Abuja. Malam Aminu Kano International Airport is also expected to open new frontiers for the region with more travel capacity for the annual Hajj, while the new Akanu Ibiam International Airport, Enugu, avails more business opportunities connecting the industrial cities in the region to the world. These new terminals beat world-class standards with enabling infrastructure that aid air travel, tourism, and the eventual growth of the country's GDP.
Open up commerce and, of course, link us to international societies.
People from international community will come here to do business, and then that will bring in more revenue to the state.
Now, distances can be seamlessly covered as Nigeria keeps raising its bar to suit global infrastructure standards.
Compliment of the season, we want to thank you for your consistent support and patronage. And to you who may not have been patronizing Made in Nigeria, we can start today by building a relationship with Erisco Foods, like our numerous partners and customers who believe in eating healthy food and in the economic progress of our country. So we enjoy you to buy Erisco tomato paste and our other Made in Nigerian products. Join the following people, institutions, and others in promoting the proudly Nigerian dream. President Muhammad Buhari, the First Lady Dr. Mrs. Aisha Muhammad Buhari, Borno State Governor Babagana Zulum, NTA, Anglican Diocese of Amish, Catholic Diocese of Onitsha, the Redeemed Christian Church of God, Winners Chapel, ShopRite,
Next Cash and Carry,
Spa Nigeria, Prince Ebano Supermarket, Buka Hut. What about you? When you buy a Erisco product, you are supporting us to create more jobs. Be part of us today. Thank you. God bless you.
Now everybody knows I'm the man. Enjoy the reward that sharing brings with the Airtel Family Plan. Get bonus talk time, SMS, and data for each family member you share with. Dial *141# now. Airtel, the smartphone network.
Shola, come and help me. You need to learn.
But I'm more interested in drawing.
How are you going to be part of the business if you don't learn?
You just don't understand.
Morning. Anyone for some Lipton?
The rich taste of Lipton awakens body and mind.
Let me have a look at your drawings. Son, these designs are amazing.
Lipton Yellow Label Tea. Awaken to what really matters.
Candidates who are interested in gaining admission into NTA TV College, JOS, for the 2021-2022 two-year National Innovation Diploma Program are to apply for admission through the Joint Admissions and Matriculation Board, JAMB. Courses available for application include Film and Television Production, Broadcast Journalism, and Television Engineering Technology. Such candidates must have a minimum of 5 O-level credits in relevant subjects including English language and mathematics. For inquiries, please call 0803-079-5335 or 0806-980-9807. Management Announcer.
From the heart of the Federal Capital Territory
to the ancient city of Kano,
from the sprawling rooftops of Ibadan
to the bustling markets of Aba and the creeks of the Niger Delta, you really can't beat the reach.
Over the years, we have kept going, keeping you informed, educated, and entertained.
And how have we survived in the very challenging year?
Because of our pillars of support, namely the 3 tiers of government: ministries, departments, and agencies,
corporate bodies and advertisers,
religious bodies,
civil society groups,
political parties, and most importantly, you, our esteemed viewers. Together, we made 2021 great.
And together, we shall make 2022 greater.
Thank you from all of us here at NTA. Your season's greetings and a prosperous new year.
Watching Good Morning Nigeria, reaching you from the NTA, and today we shall be discussing surge in coronavirus. But before we do that, let's look at some business news. Now, oil prices gained on Tuesday as investors held strong U.S. holiday season sales, and also Securities and Exchange Commission (SEC) alerts public of a plan to defraud unsuspecting investors. Let's join Kunle Adeye for details.
Oil prices extended gains with prices trading near the previous day's one-month high on hopes that the Omicron coronavirus variant will have a limited impact on fuel demand. Brent crude rose 14% to $78.74 a barrel. U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude rose 25% to $75.81 a barrel, gaining for a fifth straight session. In another development, Nigeria's apex capital market regulator, the Securities and Exchange Commission, has alerted the investing public that a firm known as Poyoyo Investments, Pilvest Nigeria Limited, is a Ponzi scheme set up to defraud unsuspecting investors. SEC, in a statement, stated that its attention had been drawn to the electronic and WhatsApp version messages being circulated to invest on behalf of Pilvest. According to the Commission, the electronic message indicates a proposal to investors to invest in guaranteed investment plans of either minimum capital of 100,000 naira being invested for a period of 1 month with a returns on investment yield of 20%, or a minimum capital of 300,000 naira being invested for a period of 3 months with a monthly yield of 23%. The statement added further that preliminary investigation has revealed that Poyoyo Investments Pilvest Nigeria Limited is purely a Ponzi scheme, and it is a non-sustainable business model that involves the collection of money from unsuspecting investors with the promise of high return without any underlying assets. With business news, I'm Kunle Adeye.
All right, now you've heard the alert. Poyoyo is another fraud on the line. So if you're hoping to invest, remember the experience of other Ponzi schemes. Thank you, Kunle, for the business package this morning. And we're moving on to our next item, which will be coming up shortly, and that's newspaper review.
And of course, as usual, Bayo Atoyabi is already in the house. Welcome, Bayo.
Good morning, Yusuf. Good morning, Claire. Good morning, Nigeria.
Good morning, Bayo.
Good morning.
You're not going to get the free bonus as you did yesterday. So let's quickly get on with it so that we don't take much of your time. Right. And I'll start with the Punch. 2023, electronic transmission of results doubtful. 301 LGs lack internet facilities, but there are 3 riders to that story. Only 473 LGs have internet access. Federal government plans additional 224 LGs by 2023. Now, experts say satellite technology can cover local governments without internet. And the last rider, INEC can use other platforms where internet is not available, says Olurode. That's the lead story on the front page of the Punch. Now, the picture story, interesting ones. The 2021 Calabar Bikers Carnival in Calabar, Cross River State, of course, we know it's become an annual event. And these bikes, Bayo and Nadabu, they look to me what everyone would want to ride. These are not your conventional bikes. It looks quite comfortable and, well, we'll get to Bayo when...
Expensive too. And expensive too.
They should be,
Yes. Yes, I wanted to use some 1, 2, 3, 4 words, but it's not allowed on air. But they look quite gender friendly. They're quite gender friendly.
That's where you're headed anyway.
All right, I think, okay, I'm not done yet. I just have quite a few stories. And I think I'll just take the ones from the up the nameplate. National Assembly sends appropriation bill to Buhari and President signs on Friday. National Assembly sends appropriation bill to Buhari. President signs on Friday. Now, FG said to close 2020 marginal oil field bid round. Details of that on page 19. And 15,049 Nigerian nurses moved to the UK in 5 years. That's a report now. And then Discos suffer load reduction as power generation sheds 571.5 megawatts. That's on page 19.
Okay, let's take a look at the Nation newspaper this morning and then see what we have on the front page. Just above the main plate, we have a few stories. One is on page 27. That says, ex-President Jammeh guilty in murder of 9 Nigerians. Ex-President Jammeh guilty in murder of 9 Nigerians. Details on page 27. On page 4, COVID-19, World Health Organization can't meet 40% global vaccination target. Still on page 4, 7 die as boat capsized in Niger. And on page 28, Nwosu says, I was accused of supplying arms to militants. These are all the Nation newspaper, the front page above the masthead. And then coming down a little, we get across a story by Elsa Spiel, abrupt wellhead leak in impossible without interference, experts insist. You get details of that on page 28. The main story here, oil belongs to Nigeria, not Niger Delta, says Obasanjo. And the riders are ex-president tackles Clark. And the second rider is Ibiano grudge against region. Moving down, outages in Nigeria. Others push oil price to $80 per barrel. And then at the bottom of the page, we have Lassa fever claims more lives in Bauchi. Details on page 4. An FCT to revoke ownership of 435 buildings on page 27. And the photo story here, as we can see, it's about the fire that got it in, the shopping mall next Cash and Carry here in Abuja. You can see the FCT minister there with the, general manager of the shopping mall discussing the incident. Bayo?
Yeah, just before Bayo comes in, so that you just do the review around. The midweek Al Jazeera has, of course, it says fears grip Abuja property owners. And I think this is in consonance with the story Nadabu just read. Right. FCTA lists 435 uncompleted abandoned structure for sanction and says pre-revocation notice served, threatens structure removal charges. Now, to beam searchlight on 600 undeveloped plots, it is a form of land hoarding, and that's according to developers. Now, thousands of CFOs are waiting collection. Government needs rethink considering economic realities, and that's coming from the allottees. That's quite important there for us to note. And this other one, Abdurrahman Abdurazak, that's the Kwara State Governor, pledges improved focus on roads, and I think Kwara State needs it, if you ask me. Zamfara elders decry indiscriminate release of arrested bandits, and I think all the other stories, Nadabu had already.
Thank you very much. Let's start with the issue related to the appropriation bill. The National Assembly has indicated that the 2022 appropriation bill has been transmitted to Mr. President. A source at the office of the clerk confirmed that the bill was transmitted on Friday, 24th of December, and stamp received on Christmas Day, the 25th. It is the expectation that the President will assent to the bill before 31st December. It may be recalled that both chambers of the National Assembly passed the 2022 appropriation bill before embarking on their end-of-year recess. About withholding asset, the presidency says that The electoral bill that President declined to assent had components that are not good for Nigeria at this time. A statement by the Senior Special Assistant, Garba Shehu, says that after scrutiny, it was found that amendments therein entail significant legal, financial, economic, and security complications for Nigerians. Principally, he says it contains severe spike in cost of holding primaries by parties. The taxpayer will shoulder the cost, and it will benefit only the richest political parties. The statement concluded that those who want limited forms of resources in an era of global crisis spent on politicking should do a rethink about their cynic games. In another reaction, the former governor of Jigawa State, Sule Lamido, says it ought to be the prerogative of political parties to determine how they select their candidates. He says apart from logistics problem for political parties, INEC will incur huge cost to monitor party direct primaries. Also, Professor Isesagi, a constitutional lawyer, has advised that the National Assembly should reenact the bill by removing the provisions for direct primaries. He says this is the quickest way to resolve the impasse. And there's the story you read about sanctions over structures.
Yes.
The Federal Capital Territory Administration says that it has concluded plans to sanction owners of 435 abandoned and uncompleted structures in the FCT. Also to be sanctioned are owners of 600 undeveloped plots within the city. The statement from the Abuja Geographic Information System says that Land Department says that the move is necessitated by security concern. The statement by Abubakar Dembo says that the action will cover 250 square kilometers of the Federal Capital Territory. There are expressions of concern that many abandoned projects may be linked to slush funds and also tend to harbor criminals.
I think it's high time, and I hope that this time around, this will be followed to its logical conclusion. There was a time such notice was also given out to allottees of unused land, plots of land, and those who have uninhabited residential buildings here and there and all that. So what happened?
There was a time I came across information that indicated that there are about 300,000 such empty properties across Abuja. And it's not only in Abuja. There are in Port Harcourt and other cities of the Federation too. Yes. Anyway, on COVID-19, the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency says that so far, 13 states of the Federation are yet to commence the administration of booster shots. The World Health Organization and vaccine production agencies have recommended that booster shots will enhance protection against the virus. Nigeria commenced booster shots on December 10th, following the detection of Omicron, and resolved to use Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine as the booster. Across Nigeria, 13 states have not begun, and the states that have begun are Akwa Ibom, Jigawa, and Taraba. And here is the news. So far, of all those states, only 5 persons have come up for booster shots.
Have come up?
Yes, 5 persons have come up for booster shots.
But the shots are there for people,
Yes.
Are the shots there? I think that's what you should ask.
The shots are there. People are reluctant in coming. As of this morning, there have been about 599 cases of COVID-19. Yesterday, there was information that Omicron has reached 1,475. Well, the good news is that Omicron has rapidity of infection, but it's not as virulent as Delta. Nevertheless, if we must stay protected, we must observe the non-pharmaceutical protocols and also go for the protective booster.
There are reports that may debunk what you have just said about the Omicron variant.
Okay.
Yes, there are reports, and I think we just, since it's a topic that we want to look at in depth, just presently, we'll just hopefully put that across to the experts.
Even South Africa, that was first to determine the genome of the Omicron, has reported that what they have found out from the cases there is that it's not as virulent as Delta. Anyway, Governor Abino Bello Masari of Katsina says until such a time that we have a state polity, he thinks that rotation or shifting the power from one section of the country will help consolidate what he described as our confederation. He says that the constitution is made for us and not us made for the constitution. He said, yes, the constitution does not say we should shift power, but if we shift power, have we violated any part of the constitution? He says this is his personal opinion, and he believes that if power should shift to the certain part of the country. Meanwhile, there is a misleading headline from the Punch which says that electronic transmission is doubtful. If you go through the body of the report, this is what Punch says. Punch reports that the National Development Plan 2025, launched last week, projects that there are 697 local governments that have internet coverage. And there are plans to peg 437 number of the LGAs with internet connections. He also says that there are indications that the 224 that are left could be linked with satellite to cover it for electronic transmission. So I'm beginning to wonder, why is the headline saying that electronic transmission is doubtful?
Well, it is backed up, with the three riders that follow. So it's, I think it's just, like you say, it's just a cast.
A headline should contain the substance in the body of the story.
Those checkers, not only a cast, but a cast to sell.
A cast to sell.
Yeah.
All right. Bye. I think we've run out. I don't know if our director is giving us more time today. If so, let's also look at the...
There's something interesting that I want to draw attention to.
Yes.
Federal government declared free train ride. The free train ride is to start from 24th of December to 4th of January. It is, in fact, going to cost federal government about 130.8 million naira. And the free ride covers Abuja, Kaduna, standard gauge, Warri, Itakpe, as well as the other one, Lagos, Ibadan. On the narrow gauge, the free ride covers area from Kano to Lagos, Mena to Kaduna, Aba to Port Harcourt. The idea is to ease the problem of movement for cities in this era. But guess what is happening? At Kaduna, ticket racketeering is going on. Even when this free ride were declared, some persons had to pay before they got onto the train. And not only that, passengers will go to the station and they will tell them the tickets are exhausted. And when you are desperate to travel, ticket that economy that would normally cost 2,600 to about 3,000, people are forced to pay 6,000 and 7,000 to travel. Sometimes they even tell you, if you want a ticket, go and see that uniform man there. And then they will get a touted ticket for you to travel.
We had already indicated this topic,
yes,
for discussion on Good Morning, and we've, sent out, of course, invitations to, it's an issue, and also looking at the free transport. Is it the 5,000 naira transport? I see it on the social media, that is being proposed. I don't know.
That is to cushion of
yes.
the effect that will come when subsidy is eventually removed.
Precisely, yes. Also, it's part of what we also want to look at.
So
it's been noted.
Yeah, yes. Before we do that, I think it's better we just talk about it a little in the sense of trying to see how Nigerians normally abuse privileges and, circumstances being provided. There is this trending video on the social media coming from the United States where, cops or policemen are dashing out $100, I would say, to people on the road as Christmas gift.
Yes.
Right?
I saw it.
Now, I also want to connect that to the federal government's, gesture of, allowing people to travel on these standard gauge rails, for free, to lose about 1.something million naira. That's a gift to Nigerians, and I think Nigerians are abusing that.
130.8 million.
130.8 million, right. That's really unfortunate.
I wish I was going to travel by train.
You can travel, go to Kaduna, go around.
But all the same, that's it. At least Nigeria should know this, and then let's try to at least appreciate.
And the trains are comfortable. They are, in fact, the interior, can make you forget. All right, Bayo, your time is up. Bayo,
did you see the Mobolaji Johnson station? It has escalator. But here in Abuja, you have a long staircase. There's a lift, but most of the time, lift does not work.
All right, Bayo. we will get to that stage. We have look at, if you check your time, we've given you another bonus today.
Thank you.
Every day is not Christmas. Have a good day, Bayo.
You too.
All right then. All right, let's take a short break now. We'll be right back.
Trying our best to contain the situation. And in our operations, we've been able to make a lot of recoveries. We've been able to also arrest suspects that are involved in this kind of activities. And we've been able to also recover, particularly arms and ammunition from those who are carrying it unlawfully and disturbing the peace of the people. But generally, our morale in the Nigerian police is always guided by our commitment to do what we have sworn to do. Peace and security must be looked into as a priority by all, to look at security as the business of all of us.
This message is from the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Nigerian youths are about the greatest assets the country has at the moment. It is therefore not surprising that the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari is strategically responding to the yearnings of the youth through multiple projects and programs. Youth Entrepreneurship Support Years by Bank of Industry, the Youth Investment Fund by the CBN, and several other conditional cash transfer programs. Recruitment of 774,000 social workers, majority of whom are youths, and so many other projects that are beneficial to youths directly or indirectly. If the administration can do all this, definitely with a degree of patience and time, it can achieve more. Nigerian youths must come together to say no to terrorism, no to vandalism, and no to all disruptive tendencies. Hashtag Youth for Greater Nigeria, pacifying the youths, unifying the nation.
The 157-kilometer Lagos-Ibadan Railway is the first double-track standard gauge railway to be built in West Africa. The Mobolaji Johnson train station is a masterpiece, an infrastructure that is gradually becoming an iconic building in Lagos State. The modern facilities put the station on a world map of train stations. Likewise, other new train stations across the country built to world-class standards. The train and its convenience is indeed an admirable effort, with commendations from Nigerians.
This is a station that we have to commend the federal government for putting a beautiful face, empowering us in Lagos State, not only in economic and political arena.
I can say that I'm really impressed with the infrastructures in place. Kudos to the Minister of Transportations, kudos to the federal government.
Truly, good things are coming out of Nigeria, and the federal government is deserving of all the applause. Arise, O Nigerians! Let's applaud the courage of Flight Lieutenant Abayomi Dairo, aka the Aggressor, for his skillful and dogged escape from the bloodthirsty bandits in the forest of Zamfara State. 3 hearty cheers also to all military and security personnel who are tirelessly protecting fellow Nigerians from insurgency and banditry while maintaining peace and order. Nigerians are proud of Abayomi Dairo and all our gallant men and women in uniform for sacrificing so much to keep us safe. We admire your courage and we say thank you. God bless the armed forces. God bless Nigeria. This message is from the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
And now to begin our discussion, which is on a surge in COVID-19 cases in Nigeria. Here is Kunle Adeye, I would say. Is that? Yeah, Kunle Adeye.
Oyeyemi Ajayi.
Oyeyemi Ajayi, that is with the background report.
On the 5th of December 2021, Nigeria recorded 55 new cases of COVID-19. The next day, it was 167. 10 days later, the figure skyrocketed to 730 fresh cases in a single day. Fast forward to 21st day of the same month, a staggering 2,123 new cases were recorded, and on the 23rd of December, the country recorded 1,940 new cases. This sharp rise in COVID-19 cases in the country has become a source of worry, especially the government, which has been working hard to ensure that the country becomes free of the pandemic. Observers suggest that Nigeria is in the fourth wave of the pandemic at a time that the new Omicron variant, which is said to be more deadly than previous variants, is wreaking havoc. For some time, Nigerians appear to have thrown caution to the wind as they no more observe the stipulated safety protocols such as wearing of face masks, regular hand washing and sanitization, as well as keeping the physical distancing, especially the 50% passenger limits for commercial vehicles. Professionals blame rising figures in cases of the virus, not only in Nigeria but globally, especially during the festivities.
Numbers are going high. The numbers are really going high. The death toll appears to also be on the rise again. And I think people should take that very, very, very dearly.
The Presidential Steering Committee on COVID-19 had declared the indoor religious gatherings should be limited to 50% with full compliance to public health measures.
The fundamental thing first is for every one of us. We are working on heavy advocacy to see that we really discourage people from the perceived COVID fatigue. Many persons have COVID fatigue, and that affects how we engage ourselves in physical distancing here. We are seeing persons crowding too much, even at the airports, even sometimes, even at medical facilities. It's not good at all for us. We need to at least keep some distance, ensure that we work in very spacious environment, because the COVID-19 appears to have mutated over time. We've gone through the Delta variant, now we are at the Omicron variant. We've gone through several other processes, several other waves here.
With 599 new cases of COVID-19 infection, we are experiencing the fourth wave of the pandemic in the country. So it is of concern that we again revisit the issue of COVID-19. And we have right here in the studio with us to give us more information on what is happening, the Director General of the NCDC, Dr. Ifedayo Adetifa. Thank you very much for joining us in the program.
Thank you for having me.
Also with us here in Abuja studio is the Acting Director, Public Health Department, Health and Human Services Secretariat of the FCT, Dr. Sadiq Abdulrahman. Thank you also for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Good morning, Nigerians.
And we also have from Calabar via Zoom, that is the Commissioner for Health, Cross River State, and Chairman, Health Commissioners Forum, Dr. Beta Edu. It's a pleasure having you on this program this morning, Doctor.
Thank you for having me this morning.
We're also expecting any moment from now, the head of Technical Secretariat, Presidential Steering Committee on COVID-19, Dr. Mukhtar Muhammad, who will be joining us from Kano. Anytime he comes in, we get him across to you. Gentlemen, here we are, COVID-19, beginning February 2020 and all through to date. The expectation had been that by now, at least with the vaccine and so many efforts being put in place, it should have been coming down as such. And all over the world, people have been expecting that because the hardship so much first, especially in 2020, was very unbearable. And that is, undoubtedly a fact of truth. Unfortunately, here we are today facing a surge in this, very disease, and then ravaging new techniques of trying to curb it, new vaccines, boosters, and whatever. Let me start on this critical note. Dr. Ifedayo Adetifa, that is, Director General NCDC, on whose back, this whole thing is. What's really happening?
Well, thank you for that question, and good morning, Nigerians. What is happening is we're having a predicted or expected surge in cases given the time of the year. Okay, so regardless of whether we had a new variant or not, we were expecting some uptick in disease transmission for COVID. And that's because obviously we are approaching our own winter, if you want to call it that. It's a period dry season, when it's dusty, when it starts to get cold, and when we have increased susceptibility to respiratory pathogens in general, including SARS-CoV-2. The other thing is that the end of the year period, especially December to January, is associated with significant movement of people, travel. So if you had a new variant or a new pathogen, it provides a ripe opportunity, very good opportunity for importation. And then, as a backdrop to all of those, specifically for COVID and for SARS-CoV-2 virus, we had low vaccination, and as the news report said earlier, people had stopped adhering to all of the public health safety measures that are known to work. So putting all of these together makes for a really bad mix that has contributed to the surge in cases, and that's not been helped by the emergence of this new variant, which is really highly transmissible, has a shorter incubation period, requires, the mutations that happen to it have conferred on it such a transmission or transmissibility advantage that you can see across the world, and even here in Nigeria, it's trying to take over or has taken over from the Delta variant that was the last cause for alarm.
Okay, thank you. We'll return to you presently. Let's also get the response of Dr. Sadiq Abdul Rahman, who is, again, the Acting Director, Public Health Department, Health and Human Services Secretariat of the FCT. Now, the FCT has been competing, so to speak, with Lagos in terms of ranking on the COVID-19 state update. From your perspective, what is really fueling the upsurge? Is it the environmental or climatic factors that Dr. Adetifa spoke about, or is it the human element?
Yeah, thank you very much. Once again, good morning, Nigeria. I think my boss, the DG NCDC, have said almost all is a multifaceted factor. But what comes to bear is the human factor. For sure, as you said, if you look at the trend over the 2 years of the COVID pandemic, FCT has been next to Lagos in the burden. In our experience here, taking into consideration, most important factor is the population explosion, if you like, in FCT. And with insecurity, a lot of turn-up of people, increasing slums, increasing pressure on the facility and the resources, and of course the non-compliance to all the laid-down protocols, the non-pharmaceutical preventive measures, vis-a-vis also people tend to move, about, and we are very unfortunate or fortunate surrounded by 4 key states which like overlapping onto the FCT, namely Kaduna, Kano, Niger, and Nasarawa. You go to the borderline of these cities, you cannot identify where you are. And almost all these states, people come to access services in FCT, come for work in FCT. And this cosmopolitan movement and increase in population with the other factors of issues of also vaccine hesitancy and so on and so forth contributed a lot. And of course, the Omicron virus, which has much more higher transmissibility.
Sorry, Dr. Sadiq, I really would like you to substantiate the fact that the fact of the population, the fact that people are emptying into, the capital territory, and that's the reason. Because if you look at the latest updates in the, COVID-19 vaccines campaign brought out by the National Primary Healthcare, FCT is number 21st, doing very poorly in terms of percentage coverage.
That's right.
Which means that we've also not been up, in terms of coverage of vaccination, COVID-19 vaccination.
Yeah, that stands out. However, like I told you, in the vaccine coverage, in the rollout of the vaccine before the recent mass vaccination strategy of the scale-up, we set a target. We set a target, but however, because of this population dislocation, there is a challenge in actually ascertaining the people coming to access these services, whether they are residents of FCT or not. However, because they work here, and they give you the addresses of people here. And that is one factor. The issue of also vaccine hesitancy is key. Until of recent, also we also got the buy-in of the key stakeholders, namely religious leaders, the gatekeepers, community gatekeepers, and so on and so forth. You can see there is that even the apathy of using the respiratory protective measures. So these are the multifaceted factors that could have led to that very low vaccine coverage that we are seeing today.
Okay, we'll get down to the vaccination issue later in the program, but let's hear from Dr. Beta Edu from Cross River State Commissioner for Health, and then of course Chairman Health Commissioners Forum. What's your opening salvo on this issue of a surge in coronavirus? Talking about, as the NCDC Director General said, it's more or less like the winter period in Nigeria here, and of course it's time for flu and then cold and associated elements like that. But it doesn't seem to spread as the weather seems to cover every other part of the country. The spread doesn't go uniform as such. What's your opening salvo on the issue of this surge? What do you think, or how would you attribute this to what the NCDC director said, or something otherwise?
Okay, thank you. Basically, first, it's expected, like I said. This is the festive period, and a lot of persons will be moving from different parts of the world into Nigeria, and of course from different parts of Nigeria back home to see their families and their loved ones. So you should expect that there would be a very, very big spike in the numbers of cases. We've seen this happen in 2020 after we had the flattening of the curve, and then it came back up with the numbers rising every other day. And this should go on till about the ending of January, when people go back to where they are. And then, of course, like he had also said, secondly, you're dealing with Omicron now, and there are lots of persons who have been infected already. Testing rate is still very, very low across the various states, and we're beginning to see more and more happen every day. But the biggest issue, the number one issue, is actually our behavioral attitude. People have refused, people have remained adamant, and they don't want to observe all the guidelines that have been set out by the Presidential Steering Committee to ensure that people protect themselves. It's really very disturbing across various states. You go, you see persons everywhere gathered in big functions, events. I used to call them mega spreaders. Mega COVID spreaders everywhere, and people are there without their face masks. You can go to a gathering and find just one or two persons in a whole gathering wearing their face masks. This behavior has led to this increased surge in COVID-19 cases that we're seeing. Of course, believing that a lot of them were imported from outside the country into the country, and the spread is wide. Remember that the transmissibility of the Omicron virus is really very high. And the only way we can know is to improve surveillance and sequencing of the various samples that we get. That's the only way we can know if we're dealing with Omicron or we're dealing with Delta and other variants. But really, I think the number one issue is that it's festive period and a lot of people have moved. And so this is expected. And of course, as they move, they go to their loved ones who didn't have it, and they introduce it into that environment, and it continues to spread. Number two, we're dealing with Omicron, which is it's very, very highly transmissible. And then the third factor, too, is the fact that people's behavior has been very poor. Beyond this, of course, is the issue of vaccine. vaccine hesitancy. The vaccines are not even available in many states. I heard you say that 13 states have not started the booster doses. As I speak to you, in Cross River State, they have not delivered the Pfizer vaccine to our state yet, and several other states have not received the Pfizer vaccine, which is actually supposed to be for this whole intervention. So those are the challenges we have.
Dr. Betta Edo, it's interesting. We're experiencing some glitch with your connection with you. I'm not sure. I don't know if you are still with us. If you are still with us, I would like to ask you. I was just going down to this COVID-19 chart, and incidentally, Cross River is one of the, should I say, fortunate states with single-digit caseload. That's I think you have eight new cases, and you have been consistent with not too high caseload. How, in the midst of all the challenges that you have talked about, behavioral issues, inadequate vaccine and all that, how have you been able to sustain this low caseload?
Sorry, if you could take the question again.
Taking a look at today's caseload, Cross River State has 8 new cases, which is single digit, and I think it's been consistent in coming up with very few caseload comparable to other states. So in the midst of all the challenges that you've talked about, the environmental climate challenges, if you may, the behavioral challenges, the inadequate vaccine and all that, how have you been able to get the infection at that low rate?
So I think two things have been very helpful. Number one, if you really do a real operational research, comparing Cross Riverians and several other states in Nigeria, you would know that the use of face masks is actually very high in Cross River State as compared to other states. I've been around to other states in recent times, especially with my job as a national chairman, and I've really got to see that too many other states are not really ahead into, of course, the face mask use. And another point is that we have a high vaccination rate in Cross River, which has helped to reduce the transmission of the virus. We had some challenges which were setbacks at some point, where we had the NSAS protest and a lot of our facilities were destroyed. But within 3 months, we were able to build back the reference lab that was destroyed and get back the testing going. So there was a break in about 3 months where the number of cases that were tested really dropped, and that was because of the NSAS protest between 24th of October and about 10th of December. Most of our labs were affected, but we're able to come back up. But most importantly is the fact that in Cross River State, we have basically cancelled almost every event that would be a mega spreader. I'm sure you know very well that the Carnival has not held back for 2 years, and the government is very strict on shutting down. If you hold an event, you will be sanctioned for it. So most events have been shut down. Events that will lead to spread have been shut down. The use of face masks is quite high in Cross River State, and beyond that, our vaccination rate too is very high. We used to top the country at some point, and even now when they started the new mass vaccination, Cross River still remains within the first 10 states with the highest level of vaccination, although we are still expecting our vaccines. Every time we run out of vaccines and we keep trying to call for more vaccines to come in, we have not gotten the booster dose, and there's a lot of pressure from Cross Riverians to receive the booster dose. A lot of work too is done around risk communication in the state. So every local government chairman is involved, the ESCO is involved, the governor is involved, everyone is involved in screaming that people should protect themselves and their loved ones. And really this has helped us to really gain miles in the COVID response.
Dr. Edu, you are the Chairman, Health Commissioners Forum. We'll talk about peer review later with you on this program, especially talking about this issue and this how other states are faring. In the meantime, Dr. Adetifa, I put it to Dr. Edu earlier on, and then I asked her really talking about one of the basic reasons why there is a surge now, as you said at the beginning of this program. But the weather counts very much and contributes a lot in this because it's more or less like a cold time in Africa, in the whole world anyway, but it's our winter, I would say. And this virus, this kind of ailment thrives very much in this kind of weather. Some states have very low cases of, COVID-19. We talk about Kwara State, for instance. I mean, Kogi State, for instance, that's only 5. And then talk about places like Zamfara State, and then you go up and talk about Lagos, which is having about the highest, and then the FCT and Rivers having so much of this. And we're in the same environment, same climate, same everything. Is it a question of vaccines? Is it a question of PCR testing? Or is it a question of compliance? Why the discrepancy and the differences wide range per se in this infections and of course cases in this country?
It's a very good question. I think the thing to start with is to say that all of the case report data has to be qualified, and that has to be qualified by taking into account knowledge of how much testing is actually going on. So across the country as a whole, we are not testing enough. We would prefer to test a lot more. As I've said in other speaking opportunities, I would like a scenario where everybody who actually is being investigated for malaria, for example, actually gets a COVID test, because I mean these symptoms that we tend to grow up associating with a particular condition is actually not specific to that. So that's one scenario. Obviously, there are a few high-burden states, Lagos, FCT, Rivers State, Kaduna, and others come in and out of the list. But what we know is that if you look, despite the patterns in testing, if you look across time, okay, so it's one thing to have high volume of testing, but it's also one thing to be consistent at whatever level you previously are. So for some states, the data is actually true. So for Lagos, clearly true. For Abuja, clearly true. For Rivers State and a few other states, clearly true, because they've maintained a fairly high level of testing across board over time. For some of the other states, you get fluctuations up and down, and you will find out that many of the states that, of course, we have some zero reporting states who are not testing at all. And for some of the other states, testing just fluctuates. And of course, sometimes we have backlogs we need to catch up with. So testing data or new case report has to be qualified by the number of tests that were previously done. But as you said, so Nigeria is remember, Nigeria is a large country. Some people say we're actually 36 countries in one. The weather front or climatic factors are not the same across board, because Lagos is certainly not Abuja, and Abuja is not Sokoto or Rivers.
Unfortunately, it's not as cold as some parts of the north at the moment.
Yes,
Lagos,
so it's not as cold as some parts of the north, and it's not one factor at play; it's an interplay. So when in our population centers, you've got population, so you don't discount that. It's got large numbers of people mixing, living in close proximity in underserved areas, traveling in mass, cramped together in buses every day. It's slightly different from some more, if you want to say, more of our rural parts of the country or places with a lot more space and fewer people. So all of this need to be taken into account when interpreting the data. But certainly, I mean, there's a reason why November to May, for example, is also a season where you watch out for cerebrospinal meningitis. But you don't get, that season does not extend sort of below Abuja or Niger State for the way you have it in North. Because again, the climatic factors that contribute to the spread of the pathogens responsible for meningitis are not the same across the country. And the northern part of the country is in what we call the Africa's meningitis belt, where you tend to have epidemic meningitis. And of course, those conditions make it favorable also for respiratory infections. But that belt does not extend to southern Nigeria, where we have, again, other problems, as the case may be.
But if you just hold on a little bit, just a minute, Clear,
Yes.
talking about this testing of a thing,
Yeah.
this is where this is the crux of the matter. Until you test, you won't know. And when you know, you now take action.
Yes.
If testing seems to be irregular in some states don't even really give much heed to it, while others take it so serious. I mean, what is really the problem therefore? How do we address this? Because it's supposed to be a situation where everybody gets to know his or her status. And of course, the government will now use that to plan and then see how they can now spread out with vaccines and other, information and efforts.
Well, as you know, long before I arrived, the NCDC and the Presidential Steering Committee did quite a bit of work to expand access to testing across the country with network of laboratories that the NCDC still supports by, providing consumables and even supportive visits to the extent that it's possible. So it's not always clear why labs do not test, but we also know that, there has to be a high index of suspicion for testing for people who have symptoms themselves or for healthcare workers who are attending to people who may have symptoms. So it's a mix of labs maybe are not testing enough because they are also not seeing enough people to test. We know that even with the national expansion of laboratory...
Or maybe the cost is too expensive. The test.
No, public health labs, the lab networks we support do not, as far as I know, do not charge for tests. So the focus is a lot on all the testing that has to happen for travel. But people tend to forget that the public laboratories actually, in a lot of the state and federal hospitals that are supported by the NCDC, you can walk in and have a test, at least COVID-19.
You may need to repeat that again so that people will hear.
So there is a lot of focus on travel testing because obviously it's associated with the mostly run by private labs and associated with the charges. But what people tend to forget is that you can actually walk into the public health labs and test at little or no cost.
And where are these public health labs situated?
For example, the DPH will probably give you an idea where they are in Abuja, for example, but you could, in other places in Abuja, as people walk into the Gadua NCDC lab to get tested, people walk into the Lagos CPHL lab to get tested. You can walk into Naima, you can walk into Luth. I mean, from time to time, there might be issues
and it's free.
Yes.
It's absolutely.
It's free. FREE, free.
Yes.
Dr. Abdurrahman.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Just like the DG said, in FCT, I can categorically tell you that all the public health facility under the Hospital Management Board of the FCTA, we roll out with the support of the NCDC, the antigen rapid diagnostic test to about 20 facilities, in addition to the FCT-owned PCR molecular laboratory that is also being supported by NCDC at Gadua. So we have the privilege of having this widespread access to testing in FCT. In addition to, provide more access to the entire population in FCT, we have stationed sample collection sites to allow people to, at will, at any convenient time during the work hours and sometime weekends, including these public holidays in public health department in Area 3, the sample collection site was open for individuals to come in, take their sample, and is taken to either Kubwa PCR lab or Gadua. And that test is free, absolutely free.
Okay, Clear, let's reestablish this fact as being confirmed now. It's free. Yeah. Testing is free. Dr. Beta, you are the chairman, Health Commissioners Forum. Talk to us about the freeness and how free this test is across the states. I know you've been talking about that it's your forum. And then a lot of reports have been coming in from states. Talk to us about how free this is and how people have been embracing this freedom.
Thank you. So first and foremost, where we see very huge number of tests being done, like it is in Lagos and it is in Abuja. We must understand that we have several private sector or very huge private sector involvement, and that's what is giving the numbers. So in Lagos, you have maybe probably 70% of the tests done in Lagos being done by private sector, and then few, maybe 30% being done by public labs, if not less. It's the same thing you have in Abuja. In most other states where you don't have a lot of travels, international airports, and all of that, and private sector involvement is very little. You have just the public labs there which are testing. Now, the public labs, like the DG of NCDC has said, the public labs are free, completely free, and they are being supported by NCDC and the various state governments. The point is, even though in some states, of course, they receive the consumables from NCDC, they have been that reduction in testing because of what I'll refer to as COVID financial fatigue by states. So a lot of states have spent so much money in 2020 in the COVID-19 response. And in 2021, they're not putting as much money into the COVID response as they were in 2020. So in 2020, you had a lot of payments for lab scientists that would work 24 hours around the clock to get testing going and all of that, in addition to the consumables which NCDC supplies to the states. But in 2021, it's not that easy anymore for states. They have that fatigue, and they're not really paying as many lab scientists and health workers to work round the clock. And so you can see that the number of testing has actually gone down. But again, I can confirm that all the public labs across the country are actually testing for free, and they are being supported by NCDC, which is doing a great job, and also by the various state governments. For me, I would want to see a rise in private sector involvement across the country, not only in Lagos and in Abuja, but across the country. That way they can produce revenue that will sustain the COVID response, and we can increase the number of testing. The second point is that people actually don't come forward for testing. Most times it's until they have very, very obvious symptoms of COVID that they come forward for testing. So most of the asymptomatic cases are being missed out from the testing procedures. I'm happy that NCDC approved for what they call it, the rapid test kits to be used for COVID. We also have the rapid PCR kits. These should be approved, and then states should also be supported with these rapid test kits. They would help a lot. For me, the ones which were sent to Cross River State, we sent them to health facilities. So when you come to the health facility and you say, I have cough, I have fever, I have catarrh, is how my malaria used to start, which is story which they give to you. We have instructed health workers, test them for COVID too, because most times you find out that it's actually COVID, but they think it's malaria and probably would have gone to the pharmacy or the chemist to get over-the-counter anti-malaria drugs. So these are our measures we can go through to increase the testing rate. But most importantly, there's need for more support to states. Some states actually have issues with their labs, and so they are not testing at all and are not reporting at all. I know about 3 of them, and I would appeal that NCDC should support them again to see how those labs can begin to work. And then, of course, inviting the private sector to get involved across all the states, whether travelers are coming there en masse or not, get involved. There are people who want to test for other private reasons, maybe for school admission, for other meetings. In fact, it's becoming part of an IV for you to get your COVID test to come into some event across the country. So we can imbibe those attitudes, get tested, know your status, which is really, really very helpful.
Dr. Edu, thank you. When I get back to you, I would like you to share with us the behavior of some of your colleagues when you meet at the Health Commissioners Forum with regards to the issue of strategy response to COVID-19 and Omicron. But I just put you on hold and come back to the studio here and ask. We've mentioned malaria, we've mentioned the traditional symptoms that people, are used to during this period. And also, people with genotype AA, I don't have that scientific background, but it's I mean, people say it, are prone to some of these, symptoms, especially at this period. Malaria or fever, catarrh and all that. So must everybody with these symptoms go for COVID-19 testing?
Well, thanks for what I said is, it's my sort of utopian aim or dream for the COVID testing situation. It's that it becomes as commonplace, at least for the period when we have this pandemic, becomes as commonplace as you would for people who have presumptive symptoms of malaria. And that's the aim, hopefully, using, as the Honorable Commissioner mentioned, rapid diagnostic tests, which we hope over the next coming weeks to months will actually ramp up in terms of its availability, because it's more accessible than the PCR test and obviously gives you a quicker result. The other thing to add before I ask you a question is that we are aware that as she's alluded to, the coverage of the network is not as, the geographical spread and access is not as we would like, because even in states where public health labs are present, if you take Lagos, for example, you're not going to use 5, 6, 10 health centers to cover the whole of Lagos, or ask people in Lekki to travel to Yaba just because they want to have a COVID test, given all the challenges they have in traffic. So there is ongoing work, not just for Lagos, but across board to make sure that rapid diagnostic tests become increasingly available and are deployed to more lower level health centers, which tend to be closer to where the population is. Now, speaking about malaria symptoms, the symptoms that we say are for malaria are really not for malaria. There are no symptoms that when you have it, they indicate that 100% you've got malaria. What has happened is that we've all grown up, okay, especially in the age where the strategy was to treat all fevers presumptively for malaria, giving chloroquine. I'm sure many people relate to drinking many courses of chloroquine tablets, the whole 10 taps and all of that. And we've gotten used to the idea, because of limitation in the healthcare system in terms of diagnostics and looking for other causes or etiologies of febrile illnesses, we've gotten used to ascribing everything to malaria. A lot of people before COVID did not even give any thought to the fact that viruses exist, and viruses actually cause most of the childhood febrile ailments that we have. And usually there are no specific treatments for viruses. You just treat symptomatically and you wait it out. But what's happened is, at the time, it was strategically useful to say, look, rather than, because of the risk of children especially and pregnant women dying from malaria or having complications, just treat every fever with chloroquine at the time. And then, but we seem to have a hangover for that period. Nobody has invested as much as we would like to into diagnostics to understand that we've got dengue, we've got other causes of febrile illness. So everybody tells you, oh, I have those symptoms I have when I have malaria. Sorry, no. Go and have a test to actually confirm that you have malaria before you take anti-malaria, so that we don't also make that new drug as useless as chloroquine is now from abuse. Okay?
Now, Dr. Efidayo, when you talk about, you mentioned something earlier, you say if given the chance, you would want everybody that goes for malaria test have, COVID test too, if possible. That could be a dream, as you said, if it's going to go on. And people feel free, easy, and of course, comfortable to say, I have malaria.
Yeah.
And the reason is there is no stigmatization in that. People are not really, averse to anything malaria, anything fever, whatever. But once you say you have COVID, the stigmatization is there, just like HIV when it first came out and to date. And people feel as if there is something negative about this. And people start thinking that, why should I therefore say I have COVID. Although the Omicron virus, the Omicron variant that is not as virulent as the other ones, you can still walk around with it and it's not so much of a heavy burden, but at least it's a disease too. People really want to get off that. The stigmatization thing is the problem. How would you react to this?
Well, stigma is a challenge and is often informed by fear of the unknown. So yes, you can't compare stigma now to HIV to what it was 20 years ago, or or longer. Same thing with TB. But even those two diseases still have quite a bit of stigma, and it's usually stigma is fueled by ignorance, by fear, and by not knowing enough about the conditions. And we have, it's 2020, 2021. We have traveled some distance compared to 2020 when COVID first came on board, and the fear, the doom, and gloom. Because it's a pathogen nobody knew anything about. A pandemic is a once in a lifetime incident, and we are still trying to figure out this pathogen. We don't know everything that we are supposed to know about it. We've made the world has made significant progress in finding diagnostics, identifying vaccines, and all of that. Of course, backed by considerable investment. And I think what we just need to let people know is the reason why you should know if you've got COVID is just to help you protect yourself and protect people around you. So it allows you to remove yourself from, from friends, from family, and hopefully break chains of transmission, because uncontrolled chains of transmission means that you cannot tell who the high-risk person is going to be in your chain of transmission, who's going to really fall ill and perhaps die. You cannot tell when the next variant is going to emerge, and variants emerge when there's unmitigated transmission. I mean, we are all talking about Omicron and all of that now, but, we started labeling or naming these variants from Alpha, and we're at Omicron. So people remember Beta, remember Delta, but people don't seem to realize there were other variants. They just never made it to become variants of interest. And in fact, there was an Eta variant, or there is an Eta variant that emerged from this country and was first noticed when it was exported to other parts of the country. So the summary of the matter is it's important to test to know, because it helps you control transmission. Hopefully people do the right thing, isolate, use their mask properly, and then prevent transmission to the next person. As long as we continue to have high levels of transmission, then the world stands the risk of new variants emerging.
All right, we'll just keep you on hold and then bring
Before you do that, let's just hang up this, all right? Yes. Testing in public facilities, we've talked about it, it's being free. Yes. But why are these public tests not recognized when you travel? Is it that they are not reliable?
No, that's not the case. So you see, people bring up traveling, and I like to separate the issues, because traveling is a separate issue from testing for diagnosis, for case management, for contact tracing. Okay? At some point in time, so the procedures put in place for travel are different from the procedures put in place for testing. So only tests done in labs that are on what we call the travel network are used for travel, because they need to come with certain documentation, certain labeling, QR codes, and all of that. Okay? The public health labs, at the time the decisions were made, was that you preserve, at that time, especially with limited availability of diagnostic centers, the decision, I think, made by PSC, again, long before I arrived here, was that you would preserve the public facilities that are at no cost for the purpose of identifying cases, for management, for case contact tracing, for treatment, and all of that. And travel, which is I guess, more elective issue, will be looked after by a different set of labs. But we accredit, there's an accreditation process for all labs on the network, whether private for travel or public. They are all on the NCDC's lab network. And there are procedures that you need to go through to get onto that network. And we try. In fact, at the moment, we are making plans to actually do a quality apart from what we call the quality assurance procedure that labs subscribe to, we are actually planning to go round to do visits to audit or visit some of these labs just to check physically and looking at records and machine records that they are still doing what they signed up to do.
But again, just to emphasize that question,
yes.
Because I've heard, some travelers, even travelers from Nigeria, outside the country, complain that test results obtained from here are questionable when they get over there. So, and they are, compelled to do another test. Why is that so?
Well, I think, again, there's the natural tendency to, well, not to say natural tendency, it's quite a bit of, we're somewhat inclined to be a bit more self-critical or assume that the worst about the country and things emanating from the country, and I'm glad for this opportunity to address this. Okay, so if there's a lot of politicization of COVID and COVID response. At the last instance when it was Canada or somebody sort of talked about some people's tests being unreliable. Yes, Nigeria was on the list, but South Africa was also on the list. The same South Africa with better genomic surveillance and systems than many of the Western countries that put them on the travel ban, their tests were deemed to be, I don't know, you had to repeat whether, so it wasn't clear whether we were repeating because they assumed a lot of transit time had gone on in your travel and you needed to test again, which scientifically may make some sense.
But you are aware of that?
Yes, I am aware of that, but the first thing to say is that it is, as far as we are concerned, unfounded, okay? Whether it is informed by the fact that some travelers having left here with negative tests arrive in other places and test positive or not, that's not, again, I think I need viewers to understand that that's not a unique phenomenon, actually. Many travelers return to this country from other parts of the world and actually test positive on their day 2, day 7 tests.
I don't think that's the case,
No,
Dr. Adetufa. I think it is a case of you present a test result not obtained from the country of resident. I mean, if you're traveling, if you're in the UK, for instance, and you've traveled to Nigeria. Now, if that test result is not obtained from the UK, if you obtain it from Nigeria, just presenting it as, okay, this is the test result, Mr. A is COVID-19, negative. And they said, oh, this is coming from there. No, we need you to go up for another test.
No, I think that's incorrect. We all travel to the UK. Okay?
I just use the UK.
Yeah. So whether, as I said, the only country that has forced about tests and asked people to repeat tests in transit, as far as I remember, is Canada. Okay, and there's a whole bunch, and there was a whole bunch of countries on their list. So it's not about Nigeria.
Dr. Adetufa, thank you. Let's just put you on hold and just go for a commercial break. Yeah. When we come back, there are so many issues we need to look at: vaccination and how effective has it been, the booster vaccines, and of course, Omicron, almighty Omicron. We'll be right back.
Finally, the hero of Nigeria's democracy has arrived. He shall usher us into a new phase of development, peace, and prosperity. He is the father of the new Nigeria, His Excellency President Muhammadu Buhari, GCFR. Welcome to another season of giving Nigerians hope yet again. We are sure of a great future for both ourselves and generations yet unborn. We look forward to your leading us as a nation into our manifest destiny. Though the challenges against us as a people are many, we know that your leadership shall set us on the right path to our greatness. A new dawn beckons on us all, and having you as our president is a precursor to this. Thank you for believing in Nigeria. This message is from the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA.
We are all Nigerians. Against all odds, we shall and must remain united. We may have our challenges, our problems, and setbacks. However, together we shall overcome them all. What doesn't break us shall make us stronger. This is the mindset that shall bring peace, progress, and prosperity to our beloved country. Do not let tribal and religious sentiments govern how you think, act, or feel. Don't be influenced by those who want to destroy our precious national unity. Everybody who is a Nigerian is your brother and your sister. This is the mindset of the new Nigeria. It is also the mindset that we must all adopt. Let us support each other in creating the Nigeria of our dreams. This message is from the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA.
The ever-busy ancient city of Onitsha is a commercial hub with millions of commuters seamlessly linking other states daily for business, leisure, and other purposes. To upscale its road network, the construction of a 1.6-kilometer long second Niger bridge, including a 10.3-kilometer highway furnished with other infrastructure, has been in motion by the federal government. This project will ease congestion on the existing 56-year-old Onitsha bridge and boost the economic capacity of the state as it easily connects to other parts of the country. The completion of the world-class second Niger Bridge Onitsha will be one of the many proud moments of the state, its people, Nigerians, and foreign investors. Onitsha, which hosts the largest market in Africa, is geared up to boast of an impressive road network. Once again, these moments are made alive by the federal government, and it is deserving of all the applause.
We have come to the end of another successful year. We wish to appreciate all those who mean so much to us. Our clients, the 3 tiers of government, ministries, departments, and agencies, corporate bodies, advertisers, religious bodies, civil society groups, political parties. You are esteemed viewers. Together, we made 2021 great. Together, we shall make 2022 greater. Thank you. Wishing you a Merry Christmas and a prosperous New Year from all of us at NTA.
Welcome back. You're watching Good Morning Nigeria, and we're discussing the surge in COVID-19 cases in Nigeria and indeed the world over. Now, let me start this segment by asking Dr. Edu about more explanation and efforts being made by the Forum of Health Commissioners on the issue of, financial, fatigue by states. I'm still interested in the testing thing and then the support, the COVID-19 response, from the center to the, subnationals, and of course what the subnationals are doing themselves in order to see to it that much more people get tested and much more Nigerians get to know their, COVID-19 status for planning purposes and indeed for treatment reasons. Now, tell us more about this. What really has the fora, decided to do about this? Are we coming back to the center with cup in hand? Or what exactly are the efforts being made in order to achieve this?
Sorry, if you could take the question again at the beginning of the question.
Financials, financial fatigue by states as regards, COVID-19 tests and some other, response and efforts being made at subnationals, talking about how this can be improved. What has the forum been doing about this? Is it coming back to the center? Or what are the initiatives being put in place by states in order to achieve greater number of people being, tested and, of course, being treated of COVID-19? Are we there, Dr. Edu? Hello? It seems to have an audio challenge. Let's move on. By the time we come back, we'll try to really, if she is back, we'll try to get this sorted out. But I won't let go, Dr. Ifidayo. Let's conclude that. Talking about tests, at some international conferences, participants are required to present their daily COVID-19 status. And they are allowed to use COVID-19 test kits. And of course, why do we still insist on PCR COVID-19 tests? Are test kits results invalid? What's the reason?
Well, no, test kit results are not invalid. For every, for a lot of diseases you want to diagnose, there's always something you call, when it's available, a gold standard test. So this test has the best performance characteristics in terms of its ability to pick up those who are truly positive and to correctly identify those who are truly negative. Now, as far as performance characteristics are concerned, while the rapid tests meet some minimal threshold, they are not as good as your PCR test. So it depends on how much stringency you want to put in place. So most rapid tests have something what we call they are required to be 80% sensitive. Okay? Which means in the simplest terms that if they're working correctly, if you test 100 people, they are likely to correctly identify, they're likely to correctly say that 20 people are negative when they're actually positive. And what you then find out is that if you do PCR tests and rapid diagnostic tests on the same people, the PCR test will pick up more of the positives than the rapid.